how much time and how much money this would take and what level of a person would be required to accomplish this.
It's actually the quality of your output is directly reflective of the quality of your input.
What kind of person would it take to be able to build something like that?
All right, hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Beyond Seven Figures podcast. I got to tell you guys, it's a real honor and pleasure to bring my guest to you today. He's one of my favorite people on the planet. Every time I see him, it's like the room has to part so he and I can just run over to each other, give each other a big hug. He's a brilliant mind. He's one of those guys that you could play this game of intellectual ping pong. It goes back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and you leave and your mind is just expanded and gone places that you never really thought it could go. And I love being able to surround myself with people that have such unique perspectives and unique angles, because in today's day and age, when everybody is sort of cut and pasting from everybody else, this particular gentleman carves his own path. And he was one of my very early mentors way, way, way back in the day, even before I started Predictable Profits. I've been following this gentleman. He always was a few steps in front of everybody else with the different changes in marketing and operations and so forth. So I've asked him to join today because he's doing things with AI that most people didn't even know was possible. And he's going to show you, even if you think that you're using AI because, yeah, I got ChatGPT, that really you're trying to build a house with just a hammer and you're limiting yourself to the possibilities. In fact, I've asked him, twisted his arm a little bit, to be able to tell you a story, and I promise we'll get to it before the end of today's episode, where he ran this 1,000 cup of coffee campaign that turned into a very, very hefty sum of money for him. And I want him to share that with you as well. So we'll make sure we get that before the end of the episode. So my guest actually wrote this book, the AI Accelerator, and he's the founder of the Superpower Accelerator. Mike Koenigs, welcome to the show, buddy.
Woohoo! How's it going, man?
Awesome. Now, for the world...
I'm making a shirt for you. I hope you don't mind. I've got my my rash guard on. I'm ready to go surfing as soon as we're done. So I'm here for you.
Nice. We should have done this in person. I should have gone to your house in Mexico.
Oh my
and could
God.
have just done it.
Anytime. All of this month and next month, still open.
Beautiful. I love it, man.
Yep.
I love it. You know, I have these conversations all the time. We're talking about AI and so forth, where for many people, they feel, oh yeah, no, we're using ChatGPT. So therefore, I feel I've used it enough. I've put enough hours. Therefore, I feel like I'm pretty proficient in AI. And you and I both know that at the grand scheme of things, they're just barely cracking into the possibilities that actually exist. So why don't we start with that? When I say they're barely cracking into the possibilities, like open up that world for us. Like what actually is possible that maybe others haven't considered?
Okay, I'm going to answer this in three parts, because as you were asking the question, I think of this as, number one, how do you create a culture of AI, both in your own mind and inside your own organization? Because many founders say, yep, I know we need AI. And if we don't get on the bandwagon, especially if they've had a taste of what's possible, they're like, we're screwed if we're not using it pretty soon.
Yeah.
And trying to get their employees to use it without being fearful is problem area number one.
Yep.
Problem area number two is just knowing what's possible. So you made the example, but you know, and there in the world of AI, there's like a toolkit, and if all you got's a hammer, everything looks like a nail, and you've got to have right fit tools to get from here to there.
Yep.
And then the third is knowing what I think are the four key functions of how to think about AI, which are, number one, expand your superpowers. That means as a founder, first, you have to know what's possible and what to use, what not to use. Number two, think in terms of what everyone wants. I want a one-person marketing team so that I can grow my business, create more reach, get more attention without having to add more people.
Yep.
The third is how to elevate my business and brand to attract higher quality customers who pay more
Yep.
What's that take? And then the fourth is how do I scale ideally with the people I have or without having to add more people? So this whole notion of what agents are. So we'll kind of cover it through that framework.
Perfect.
And I think if we begin with like what are the best tools to use, I will first of all say that the mindset we need to adopt is we are tool agnostic. ChatGPT, as of this moment, is still arguably one of the best tools out there, especially the version right now we're using ChatGPT 4.5 with deep research. Holy crap, it does some incredible stuff.
Right.
So I'm going to ask you before I tell you a couple examples of how I've used it just in the past week that have been very profound before I stack on some of my other favorite tools. But what have you used it for recently that's blown you away?
Well, I'll tell you. So I have a friend of mine. He's a very, very accomplished gentleman. Let's say a billionaire, right? And he was telling me about something he was been trying to solve for the past 4 years. And he's got people that are he's paying to solve this issue. And I said, give me 10 minutes and I'll call you back. What are you talking about? Give me 10 minutes. And so within 10 minutes, I sent him a text message of what I found. And he said, Charlie, I don't know what you just did, but in 10 minutes, you just made me $500,000. And that's arguably not only using the tool, but it's actually the quality of your output is directly reflective of the quality of your input. And while many of these people try to use the tools, they don't know the input. And that's sort of like an example, I guess, that of what I did in 10 minutes. We were able to create $500,000 worth of value by knowing the right input. And that's sort of what I've done. And I've done all sorts of things like act as a CRO and tell me different ways in which we can optimize, this particular landing page after including our super consumer profile inside there.
Whenever I'm speaking to someone, I ask them a series of questions. I'm thinking like, how can I ask the fewest number of questions and learn the most about an individual so either myself or someone on my sales team can speak with them?
Yeah.
So over the past, say, 90 days, I had been building a series of prompts and tools. And I'm going to just ask this question after I describe all the things you get, how much time and how much money this would take and what level of a person would be required to accomplish this. Okay.
Okay.
So, number one, this tool will go out. And it, by the way, I did this all with the latest version of ChatGPT. So it didn't require custom coding, although we're building a custom product right now that'll be done in about 2 days.
Okay.
So with nothing more than someone's name, web address, and LinkedIn, it will go out and find out their entire work history, everything they've done, every platform they're on, every book they've written, virtually every article they've written. It will figure out their voice, meaning their style of speaking and their voice. It will estimate and calculate 10 different personality profiles, which include the Colby Index, Print, Strengths Finder, Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, and I think it's called Ocean.
Okay.
And there's a few more.
Yeah.
Okay. I've got it doing 12, and it's accurate within a point up or down. So if you're like a 3195, that's my Colby Index. It might say I'm a 2-3 or a 2-2-8-4.
Yep.
But pretty close enough to have a really detailed conversation. And then based only on that, it will go through and research them and determine, it'll look at their website and come up with 10 to 20 recommendations on how to speed it up, make it more effective. It'll discover their ideal customer profile and put it together so it's super accurate. And then it will estimate and calculate that person's better future self, meaning all of their psychological challenges that they typically run into that prevent them to getting where they are. It helps determine what their better predicted self could be. And then it will also calculate and estimate how to increase their authority and expert status in their business for their ideal customer profile and make recommendations on what that should be. In other words, enough to have a one-call conversation about exactly how we can work together, because here's the big finish. It also includes my sales letter and one of my proposals, and it'll completely create a custom sales letter made for that person and a proposal for how we can collaborate and work together.
Hot damn.
So, in your opinion, after you heard that, how much time and how much money would that cost, and what kind of person would it take to be able to build something like that?
Well, historically speaking, just to identify the ideal client profile, historically, it would take somebody to do it right over a week just to do it right with a heck of a lot of research.
Yeah.
Copywriters for a sales copy letter, I mean, on the low end, for a really good top-notch one, and this is like on the low end, it's 25,000. It's not uncommon for some of the big ones to spend six figures for a really, really good high converting copy letter. We're talking, well into the six figures in the time frame on that, especially when it comes to copy. A good copywriter, they could say, I'll get it to you in a few weeks, right? But you're talking a lot. So yeah, six figures in a lot of time.
Yeah. Weeks of time and a team, like just to do basically doing back research on someone to know as much as you can would be 2 to 3 days of a really good journalism major researcher, and $5,000 or $10,000.
Yeah, I did that way
So
back before AI. I hired somebody from the New York
me
City
too.
library system to do the research for me, and all that other stuff. And it did. It cost
Yeah.
thousands, and it took at least 10 days.
And they wouldn't know the context of your business. So this thing now, I've got it down. It will build and create that entire thing in about 20 minutes. It's not just for me. I've done this now for other folks. You can have a one call close, and people, you don't have to ask more questions, because you'd be like, hey, let me just show you some details and let me know if this is accurate. And they're like, how did you get all this information? It's kind of scary. And I have to pre-frame them and say, look, I have an AI tool. Before we meet, I'd like your permission so that I can do a bunch of deep research and learn as much as I can, so I can provide as much value as possible when we get together. And they're like, sure, tell me more about my favorite topic, which is me. And that's exactly what it does. So that has been one of the components. And I think if you just synthesize, that is one tool, but now I'm able to take that input and feed it into another product. It's called Manus. It's Chinese technology, full disclosure, but there's other products that are similar to it now. One's called GenSpark, but I've been using that to create entire marketing plans, sales copy, websites, prototypes. And in a day, I can effectively build someone's better version of their future self and have it prototyped. Again, it represents easily 6 to 12 weeks
Yeah.
of labor in less than a day.
Amazing.
Yeah. So if you think of, again, in phase one, the culture of AI is just knowing what's possible. And there's a few tools to get there. Besides the copy and the research, the other shortcut that I use, I'll give you another use case. So last week I was with a new client. He's an architect, really cool visionary, does stuff with organic, like wood and stone. And he built a $8 million boathouse. The directive from the founder was, I want to create a place that's so fun that people who come and visit will talk about it for years and fight over the chairs. Okay. He's also building a living room, or built, that has a mountain in it.
Wow.
So there's a type of stone, some of the oldest stone on the planet, that the family had traveled and visited. It's one of the places where they've anchored a lot of memories, and they wanted to keep those memories alive. So they brought that stone and built it inside this room. So anyway, this guy's a visionary, but for him, he's the best kept secret. How does he get his word out? So using a combination of Manus and ChatGPT, in 30 minutes, I wrote him a TED Talk and then slipped it into a tool called InVideo, and it created a synthetic version of him performing his TED Talk, all in about an hour and a half. This comes back to the culture of AI, is what we're so used to being held back by what isn't possible because we've got constraints of time, money, and people. And now you can imagine it and make it real.
Yeah.
And so the culture and mindset of AI is discarding or relinquishing your attachment to the PTSD of I can't have it now because of time, money, people, capabilities.
When people say AI is going to replace everybody's jobs and everything else, you and I have both talked about this many times. It's not AI that's going to replace them. It's a person who knows how to use AI that's actually going to replace the person. It's the person who knows how to use AI better. But there's a different muscle we all have to build because our limitations are going to be based on our imagination. And that's a muscle that we don't typically build in college. That's a muscle that, we don't build anywhere else. So most people are going to have to build that muscle. And that's what the advantage is. Because as you're talking, Mike, I'm taking notes and I'm going, oh, that's a brilliant idea. That's awesome. Oh, that's really smart. That's a good idea. See, the tools and everything the tools are all available to everybody, but it's the muscle, that a muscle of imagination, that muscle of curiosity, that muscle of knowing the right questions to ask, because the answers are all there, right? So that muscle that you're referring to right now, that intellectual curiosity and the vision of being able to say, imagine if we could do that, that's the advantage that is happening right now. Then that advantage is only going to be magnified a million times over a year, 2 years from now, because to compete with everything that's going on, you're going to have more imagination and more intellectual curiosity.
Yeah, I'm going to accent that because I was at Strategic Coach this week and I did 2 AI sessions for the members. And the questions that came up is, number one, how do I bring AI into my business? And I said, first of all, you need to know what's possible. Let me show you some of the things that were possible. So I demonstrated some of the stuff I showed you. And it's like, oh, the popcorn starts popping. And then how do, I want to know enough to be dangerous and know it's possible and introduce AI into my business without striking fear into my team, feeling like they're going to be replaced. And just like you said, you don't have to worry about AI replacing you because you're going to be the best one to have your capabilities amplified with it. So it's a
Oh, yeah.
capability amplifier.
AI is
And
the only tool that actually will teach you how to compete against it.
yes, and it will teach you how to use it.
Yeah.
And precisely, you nailed it. Like, what is the number one thing that makes a person great with AI? It is curiosity, which is limitless thinking. Knowing that, the way I've been posing this is when you look at mobile phones, now, when social media came into being, a mobile phone could make a highly productive person 100 times more effective because you could communicate faster,
Yep.
text, send audios, videos. You could do asynchronous connection communication and manage and maintain hundreds of relationships in a day very effectively. And then, so it can make a really effective person 100 times more effective, maybe even 1,000 with leverage. But a stupid person will sit and scroll through TikTok and Instagram like you think about it, every Uber driver, anyone who does any kind of a job where they can actually listen to something, they can be getting a PhD for free, hands free. Okay.
Yeah.
Instead, what do? They look at stupid stuff. So stupid people are 100 or 1,000 times stupider. And that's really what we have to be cautious of, is the grand divide is going to happen through deliberate ignorance.
Yes.
Ignorance is forgivable, stupid isn't.
Yep.
And stupid is when you are constantly sucking down someone else's stuff. So we had a saying in our own home, not that this always worked. He said, first of all, we're creators, we're not consumers. So the rule in the house was you had to spend twice as much time creating over consuming. So let's use these tools to create. And in the world of AI, I think that has to be a 10x that, because right now with AI, like Suno is a tool you can make music with. And that's one of my favorite first tools I introduce young people to when I teach them is let's make a song for all the people in your family, a song about how much you appreciate them.
What's that called again?
It's called Suno.
S
Suno.
S-U-N-O.
And you can make any kind of music. So I can create a tune that's 1970s reggae style. And you can't say make it like Kanye, but I can say Marley style reggae and it will play. But if I say Bob Marley, it'll say it can't do that. So you have to work around the copyright, but you can basically I can make AC/DC style music or 70s anthem rock or, techno, cinematic thriller, drama music. And you can use it. It even writes lyrics and it does the instrumentation, it does the vocals, and it is perfect. It's really good. Again, to a musician, and I've got a lot of friends who are professional musicians, and some of them are like, screw this AI stuff. And some of them are super excited because now they're collaborating and creating an enormous body of music that they were limited to before. Just the same as my son's been going to school for film. And he's like, visual effects artists are screwed. I'm like, well, in the 70s, so were people who were using traditional analog tape. And when the first digital recorders came out, you could get a lot more done with a lot less.
Yeah.
And then you've gotten used to sitting on a laptop with a whole bunch of loops, being able to compose a song. And there's a whole generation of musicians who take it for granted that you have a multi-million-dollar recording studio in a $600 laptop.
Yeah.
Okay. So in a way, this isn't different, except it's happening a lot faster than most people realize.
Yeah. Which is all the more reason, because it's happening so fast. Every day that you wait to use it, you risk slipping further and further behind. So the best time is right now.
Yeah. The best time to plant a tree, 20 years ago, the next best time is right now.
Yeah.
All right. So if you think about it, again, the culture of AI is expand your superpowers, increase your curiosity, start to play. And the tools that the only ones you really need, if I give people like, what do I use that give you incredible superpowers? ChatGPT, Notebook LM, because I can train an AI with my entire body of work and create like anything from that. And you can also teach it someone else's content and then convert it into your content by applying your voice. So one of the commands that I've been showing people and demonstrating lately is someone will be like, oh, I can't make AI write like me. It writes this crap and it doesn't sound like me. And it's like, actually, all you got to do is say, I want to write a book for a B2B business environment of founders and entrepreneurs who want to apply and use AI in their businesses. My name is Mike Koenigs, and I want you to examine my website and these podcast episodes and these channels and these websites and my LinkedIn and give me a style guide so I can apply this voice to any AI content I want to write. That's basically the prompt. And then about 5 minutes later, out pumps this prompt. And now that's the style guide that you can apply to anything and it'll write like you and sound just like you.
Amazing. And that you do that through a notebook?
Yeah, I do that. I create the style guide in ChatGPT because it does a better job of scraping the outside world, but then I can put any content inside Notebook and just say, use the style guide and now write the first 10 chapters of a new book. Boop, it'll come up with 10 chapters. And I'll say, write a chapter at a time. So those are some of my, what I call superpower enhancing tools that I can't live without. I use Claude sometimes for copywriting, Perplexity for research, and I've been using Grok more and more, which is Elon's, for fast general purpose stuff. So the framing is someone will say, well, is there one tool that's good for everything? Yeah, use ChatGPT if you just wanted one tool. But if you had an opportunity to have 5 geniuses with IQs of 150, each working in your office, but in separate offices, and you could ask all of them the same question, but they couldn't work together, then you had them report their findings back. You could probably spot if 3 out of the 5 came up with similar responses, they're probably the ones in the Venn diagram, and you can take the best stuff from all those. So you synthesize the results of your top 3 researchers. So if you could get all those researchers for somewhere between free and $200 a month, 5 geniuses for $1,000 a month, would you do that, or would you just get one?
All right. You get all 5.
Precisely. So I think that's the mindset to use, which is just get more of the smartest, because they'll all work in parallel, and then you can look at the results. So that's the other culture of AI, is discernment. It's like, what
Yes.
is good and what is bad. And it doesn't take long. It's like having an aesthetic. Crayons on a wall. Some people might call that art,
Yeah.
but I would rather be around some beautiful Italian frescoes and plasters, right?
Yeah.
If when ink is embedded inside material, it's going to have a much, it's like, that's a refined aesthetic. And the best way to get a refined aesthetic is to get exposed to lots of art.
And the
And the
interesting
same is
thing
true with
is,
AI.
several people have said to me, "Are you worried that you're going to be replaced?" Meaning me. Am I worried that I'm going to be replaced? As a business coach, right? I said, absolutely not. Not now, anyway. It's nowhere close. So, well, I don't understand, but all the information is out there, and I can have ChatGPT and everything do that. I go, I get it. But here's the thing. I have the context of knowing when the output is right or wrong. And that's why, I won't be replaced, because not only is it the input, but then the I feel like the newbies, the people that are just getting started with it, their disadvantage is letting AI do all the thinking for them. But you have to work with it, which means rarely does an output that I get end up being the final output. It's usually some back and forth, some feedback, some back and forth, some back and forth, and then I get the output. But like you said, I'll go ahead, and just earlier today, I had about 3 different agents that were working for me, AI agents working for me, all assigned to the same task, all using different models. And then I like that one. I like that one. You can go away. So it's like, so you pull the best from all of them. It's like you said, you synthesize it. So
Yeah.
I
We having, think of it as an advisory group. What do great presidents have? They've got a whole bunch of advisors, even the ones that they don't agree with in the room. You've got to have conflicting, because the synthesis, the hybridization, the Venn diagram of wisdom and knowledge. And that's the one thing that at this time, sure, you can simulate it, but what AI is getting better at asking really good questions.
Yeah.
But most people don't know how to ask good questions to save their lives. And the less context you have, the less experience you have, the fewer good questions you ask. And a great coach asks great questions that they in themselves cause you to experience a transformation, a shift in consciousness.
Absolutely.
And so that is my way of completely and totally agreeing with you.
And the funny thing is,
So
for somebody that says, well, I don't understand, or they want to see it for themselves, get an output and then follow up with something like, what would Richard Branson's answer to that question be? Or how would Richard Branson approach it? You're going to see something totally different. Be like, okay, well, how would Jeff Bezos approach it? You're going to get something different. It's like, wait a minute. Why aren't these the same? It's because there's many different ways to get to the outcome that you want. But the people that are going to struggle are the people that haven't figured that out, and they just go one input, one output, and they assume that that's it.
yes. And this gets back to an even deeper concept, which is the more knowledge of history you have. I'll build on top of what you just said. So one of the things that I do is I'll say, okay, in examining all of this output, I want you to apply the Richard Koch principle, which is he's a version of the 80-20 principle and the starfish principle. So I'll say, apply that. And then what I'll also do is I'll add a filter, and I'll say, I want you to examine this person's entire body of work. I'm about to have a conversation with them. I want you to apply Chris Voss's negotiation principles in an ethical fashion. Give me the top 10 tips I can use to have a conversation with them that will help them arrive at the conclusion that we should work together. And boom, it'll effectively say, matching and mirroring and echoing. It'll examine that person's value system and crank out this entire manual for how to have a deeply emotional, authentic, ethical negotiation with that person. So that is, again, think about increasing the superpower of everyone on your team so they can actually get along better. And if I have the synthesis of all of their personality profiles and types, there's a whole guidebook there on how to get along,
Ah,
right?
brilliant.
So,
I'm going to need more
so
paper.
again, yeah. So friction-free imagination, curiosity. One of the things that we could do is when we're done here, Charles, send me this and I'm going to run it through my guide and we'll turn this into a tool that we can put in the show notes for people to download,
Oh,
right? Okay, so we've covered the four things: the culture, boosting your superpowers, how to learn and think in AI, which is this friction-free imagination, curiosity, knowing what's possible. And then we get to the one person marketing department, which is right now, this is something that happened in the past as of the moment we're recording this, about a week and a half ago. ChatGPT upgraded its 4.0 model to do imagery,
oh
and it
yeah.
does text so well. You can basically say, I want you to put all of this copy on a blackboard and take my face, but turn me around so I'm facing the blackboard, and it'll simulate and create a version of me drawing on the blackboard or a book cover. And the way to stack some of the things we've done is you can say, I want you to create a style guide for my brand with all the colors, examine my website, and then analyze my top 100 competitors and create 50 ads and then make them for me. And it will start actually generating the visual ads in the style of your brand. And if you don't have a brand, you can have it create one by modeling your top competitors and synthesizing the best of those.
Mm.
So the role of the one person marketing department, which again, in the past, you'd have a copywriter, you'd have a designer, you'd have an artist, you'd have a web person, you'd have all these people. And I'm not saying don't have them. It's just that now generalists are going to be the grand winners in the world of AI generalists who have a sense of and a willingness to ask the AI to give you clarity on what works best and then create stuff that's even better.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's entirely possible now. And we just did this a week ago. We had a guy in who we built a new brand for, and they are in the storage business. In fact, it's such a good offer. I'm investing in this deal, but they're raising $100 million, and it's self-storage, but it's the high-end stuff. And it's one of the few investment categories that even during the 2008 crash, self-storage increased by 6% overall.
Wow.
And it's been a steadily growing business model since the 30s. And the stats on it are astonishing because people intend to put their stuff away for 3 months. It stays there for 3 years. The retention's really high. People pay their storage bill after their cars. They pay it before their homes because they know they'll lose their stuff if they don't pay their bills.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole bunch of psychology behind this, but they've got a mechanism for picking like where they're going to build. Anyway, we fed their entire body of work, all their products into a series of AIs, and I wrote 2 books in about 4 hours in the voice of the founders and just using these same stacks. So again, how long does it normally take to write a book? How much does it normally cost?
Yeah, I mean, write a book. It cost, for the Predictable Profits Playbook, it was $55,000 to work with a researcher ghostwriter who interviewed me and all my stuff. $13,000 for one editor and another $7,500 for the finishing touches. And that's just to get the copy.
Yeah, and that's including your time, then the book, then
or the design,
the promotion copy. Yep. And then the publishing, and so let's call it $100,000 plus easily. What was your opportunity cost?
Oh, it took a year. It took a year to write it.
Great.
Yeah.
So how much money didn't you make while you were writing your book that you could have been if you would have been focused purely on the present? But for the most successful people would say, yeah, I gave up somewhere between $250,000 and $500,000 in revenue. And then I went on my promotional spree, which took 90 days, and it probably cost me another 3 to 6 months in revenue before I got the benefit of the book.
Yeah.
It's a gamble.
Yeah.
There's still some of the mushy middle that AI can't fix. which is the relationship and some of the platforms you have to get on, at least at this moment. But that's the other thing, is it gets rid of, my mindset is what AI works best for are quick starts who can sit down and imagine out loud and so you innovate quickly, you iterate in real time, and you can get to a finish line faster and without losing your momentum. Which the other part of the culture and what makes this work is you get these constant dopamine hits.
Yeah.
So you get incremental success. So from here, it's the one-person marketing team. The third phase is in elevating your status, your authority, and the value of the brand, which again comes from expert status, writing books, doing deep research. I'll give you another really good application. So when I'm working with people, they're always saying, okay, how do I create more reach? I'm a best kept secret. Nobody knows who I am. I'm like, well, what would your answer be? What's the Charles Gaudet solution to getting more reach and more attention?
Well, I mean, ultimately, you got to be as long as somebody says to you the four magic words, I see you everywhere, that's great. We know that consumption drives conversion. So you got to put content out there. So, depending on where the market is, for me, being out there on LinkedIn, it is a big one. And then you boost and you retarget and all that other fun stuff, speaking on stages, webinars, like there's a whole bunch of stuff, right? But it takes a lot of work. If you tell me something that's going to make all that stuff that much easier, I'm going to be floored, because it actually does take a lot of work. And I mean, I'll use AI to help craft ideas and so forth. But at the end of the day, I'm the one who puts the sanding and the finishing polishes on it. Yep. I think you're muted. Hold on.
I did that on purpose. So the nice thing about being out here in the wild right now is there's lots of birds chirping, and I was turning them off just in case it was distracting. So here's the answer: is you everywhere now. Precisely what you said. It's reach. And the hardest thing and the most expensive thing to get is someone's attention.
Yeah.
Well, the best place to get attention is somewhere where it already is, and to borrow it or buy it. And so I created a whole series of prompts and a couple of tools now. So when I'm with someone, I'm like, okay, now that we know who your ideal customer profile is, we know what your offer is, we know who your competitors are, give me a list of the top businesses, associations, groups, podcasts, influencers, stages, and audiences that these people belong to. Give me the top 100 and then tell me who the founders and owners are and their contact information. All right. And then you can say, and give me 3 bullets, hooks that I can present to them that historically they have said yes to. So what effectively you do is you identify 50, 100, 300 different audiences, groups, associations, and the hooks and the bullets, because I have it historically examine other people like me that they may have promoted. So that is the you everywhere now, elevate my status, my visibility. And if you're just starting out, do some paid sponsorships, because you're just stroking a check. It's going to be a hell of a lot cheaper than if you had to promote and advertise to that audience. They already have the creme de la creme in the room.
Mm-hmm.
They already have authority. So that is, and then from there, it's just building the content. But now you know what content to make and who it's for.
Yeah.
And the challenge most founders have, most businesses, is they just don't understand their customer.
Yeah.
They don't have the messaging down.
Yeah.
And now you got a superhuman tool that helps you do that.
We've actually, one of the things that we've done is we've had AI analyze our top buyers and the personas of our top buyers, what we call our super consumers. And from the super consumers, create one giant super consumer profile, including the words that they use to describe their pain, the words that they use to describe, what it is that they want, go all the way down, every single thing that we need to know, including, the platforms that they're on, give us some topics that are immediately relevant to them and so forth. And one of our new clients actually said, hey, here's the deal. I joined you guys because I'm reading your website and I'm going, my God, I feel like they're actually talking directly to me.
You're speaking to me.
You're speaking to me.
Yeah.
But that's See, that's the thing. I remember way back in the day, I hired a particular copywriter. I won't say his name, but you know who he is. Very well-known copywriter. And I'm like, hey, I want you to do this. Cost $1 bazillion. He did a whole ton of research and whatnot. But now the thing is, I can actually go and use AI and say, I want you to write in the tone and style of this particular person and come up with it. And then I can see, or in strategy of this particular person. And then I can turn around and then say, now put it into my voice. Right. And it's, man, there's so many cool stuff. I know we're pushing against the clock though. I know you've got a program that's coming up. I know you've got an in-person. I know you know Tony Robbins. I spent a year and a half with Tony. He talks about immersion is the best way to be able to really accelerate from where you're at to ultimately being an expert. And so you've got one of these immersion opportunities for anybody that wants to learn more about AI and really take them with the speed of everything going, take them from maybe a rookie to then far ahead of 99.5% of all people.
It's called AI Accelerator Live, and it's at aiaccelerator.com/live. And it is a 2-day in-person workshop designed for founders and owners. One of the things that we added, because enough people screamed at me and said, this is what I want. I want to be able to bring a business partner and or an implementer with me. So now we've expanded it so you can do that, because I did the math. I've spoken now to live that I can track, not including social media, podcasts, and all that, live in person, about 30,000 people that I presented AI to and done workshops for, and we've got a product. And we're covering the 4 things workshop style. So the first one is expanding your superpowers and creating a culture of AI.
Yep.
And how you do it as a founder. And we show you the minimum viable tool set you need, but it's done workshop style. So I'm bringing someone in that I'm featuring, that we built a brand to expand their superpowers. We feature it, and then we give you a playbook and a workflow and let you do it. And then we come back and talk about what we learned, because immersion is the best and fastest way.
Yep.
It's FAFO, or fool around and find out, except it uses the F word. Okay. Number two is going to be your one-person marketing team. So we're going to demonstrate how we took one person to create an entire marketing campaign and program. Again, it's a use case with a real human.
Yep.
Then how to do it. Then you get to do it, and then we come back and talk about it.
Yep.
So we call that, there's a morning session, an afternoon session. Day 2, we do elevate your you everywhere now. How to create more visibility and credibility and elevate your status, authority, and value so you can charge more and attract better customers. And then the 4th is having agents that do all this stuff for you, so you can scale your business without adding more people, and superpower, accelerate, and capability amplify your core people, the ones you already have. So you're not stuck in this constant churn. The pain we all have is people.
Oh,
right?
that's awesome. It's
Yes.
actually
So
amazing when you see this play out, by the way. When you see it play out, it's super amazing. When you see agents, AI agents, actually interacting with each other and talking with each other too, like it's almost, it is completely mind-blowing. And then it's when you see this play out, all the doubts, all the concerns, everything begins to go away, and you begin to actually see a much brighter future. So
absolutely. I'll give you the 1-minute use case.
Yeah.
So I was at a coach meeting, and there's a guy there, I've known him for years. His name's Dr. Stephen Poulter. He is arguably one of the most visible and successful IVF doctors.
Yep.
I was chatting with him. I'm like, hey, what's your current pain and what do you really want right now? And he says, well, honestly, my market right now, we're always under attack. IVF is not well looked at by the current administration, and there's a lot of complications going on. I want to be in the information business. And he does have a great social following. So I fed in, remember they told you about my profile. I did a whole bunch of research on his better future self, and I had this AI design a better future self, and it came up with an idea for a software product. Well, I took the thematic concept of that software product, I fed it into a tool called Lovable, and prototyped and built a software for him. And it wrote the website, and it actually built a loginable functional prototype of the software in about 30 minutes. And I showed that to him, and he was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
How long did that take? And I said, about 2 hours. And then Gino Wickman, who you know
Yeah.
from Traction and EOS, he was there and he said, do you think you could take my entire body of work of 8 books and help me figure out what my next book is? And I said, not only could we figure it out, we could write it. We could do it in a day
Yeah.
and create the campaign and the content. So that is the vision that I hold for everyone who attends is you'll walk away with the clarity, new confidence, the tools, the resources, the know-how to bring that mindset into your organization so you're not a dependent, but you can still be the smartest person in the room for seeing the future. And that's what's going to give you the courage and the confidence to make this part of your business and your life.
And again, that URL for people that are
Yeah, aiaccelerator.com/live. And
AIaccelerator.com/live.
yep, and we've got it's going to be a small group. I'll have no more than 40 people there. Well, I have to check. I know this morning we had 10 paid. I've got another 7 that I'm just waiting for their checkout. So we're close to halfway, and we just opened it up last week. So
Awesome.
it'll get fast.
Fantastic,
And then,
man.
yeah, thank you. You want to hear the $1,000 cup of coffee real fast?
Oh, damn. Yeah, absolutely. Please. Absolutely.
We got to make sure we close this loop or you're going to have crabby listeners. So here's the basic idea. I was at an event and I was with a couple people. Joe Polish was there. He's sitting next to me. And another guy, his name's Gary Klaben. And I was just telling him that, one of the challenges that I have with my business is it's a high ticket, done with you. And people don't always understand that we can build a business in a week and launch it. And Gary said to write a 6-figure check. I'm not ready to write out the $180,000 check, but I'll pay you 25 grand for an hour of your time so we can talk and I'll see if it's right. And Joe looked at me and goes, well, you should do the $1,000 cup of coffee. I'm like, what's the $1,000 cup of coffee? He goes, well, I did this interview with Ron Lynch. I'll send you the link to the interview. So he texted Eunice and said, send it to Mike. She sent it over in a couple of minutes. I transcribed it and I built the campaign within the next 3 hours and launched it. Basically what it is. And then I did a webinar on it as well. So I got 11 people to sign up. Here's the basic idea. The promise is I'll meet with someone for $1,000. And you have people always say, hey, can I pick your brain?
Yeah.
And Ron Lynch, who does commercials, would say, no, you can't. Because if I just meet with you for free, you're going to listen to me, but you won't take action and you won't get any results. But you're going to invest $1,000. We'll go out for a cup of coffee and I'll tell you what I think you should do. And I don't care if you do anything after that. And I'm going to donate the money because I don't need your money, but I'm not going to waste my time on someone who doesn't take action. So what I started doing is now my $1,000 cup of coffee, I have this researcher go out and learn everything about someone. So when they come to the meeting, I'm totally prepared. I prototype the better version of their future self. And they immediately say, can you do the rest of it? Can you make it happen? Because they're so blown away. Because I transparently show it to them. I give them the value first. And if nothing happens, it's fine. But I had better than a $500,000 week the first week that I did it. And then we did a webinar where I taught the process of what you get. And I had 11 people sign up.
Wow.
Okay. So, from the time that I came to you and I asked for your help and you coached me on some new ideas, that was how I synthesized and created something that really worked. So you're actually part of the birth of this thing. But the important takeaway is this model can work for anyone who talks to people and gives and produces advice, but it's to create a version of the $1,000 cup of coffee.
Wow.
And it's profoundly changed the way I think about advising, consulting, and front ending, because I didn't have a good low ticket offer. And so I want to thank you for the inspiration that when I was in the pain of what should I do next? You gave me some really good advice, but I needed a feeder, and the $1,000 cup turned into that feeder. And the last thing I did that I'll tell you is I took the webinar, I fed it into AI, and I turned that into a $37 mini product that leads to the $1,000 cup of coffee. So now, I've got a really low ticket that starts the conversation, and it just fully describes how you can use this model in your own business. So it's like a product, a pain turned into a solution, turned into a product, and it all happened with the help of AI.
Oh, man. Well, hey, together we're better. I mean, every time I talk with you, I got notes all over the place right now. It's unbelievable.
Good.
So,
Well, take some pictures. I want to see them.
yeah,
Um,
this is awesome. This is awesome. Thank you, Mike. And so the people again,
well,
it's AI Accelerator.
.com/live. This is, I don't know if I'm going to do any more. Events are really, really hard, but I've had enough people screaming saying, will you show me? Can I bring someone? How do I make this go? And finally I said, okay, I'll do it. I gave up events 7 years ago for a reason,
Yeah,
but doggone it, I can't help myself.
that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Well, thank you
Well,
very much, man. Thank you. I appreciate it. Today's episode, it's going to be really hard to actually recap it because we covered so much. At the end of the day, I think where I want to leave you is that AI, you're ultimately limited by your imagination. There's so many different ways in which you can leverage AI. Surrounding yourself and being part of a conversation and looking what's possible is really going to help you build that muscle right now. And that's where the advantage is going to be going to those people in the future. It's building that muscle. And to build that muscle, you got to be engaged in conversations like the one that we've had today. So again, thank you, Mike, for being here. I've loved this conversation as much as you and I have talked, several times. Every time is just a wealth of information. So again, thank you. And for our listeners that are also looking for additional strategies, tips, and information to grow faster, more predictably, and less dependent on you, also check us out at predictableprofits.com. Again, that's predictableprofits.com. This is my good buddy, Mike Koenigs. And I'm Charles Gadet. I will see you in another episode.